In her first sit-down TV interview since being released from prison last month, we're hearing Lisa Ray Moss's story firsthand. It's a story she says she was told not to share during her trial in 1990. She received a life sentence for the murder of her husband and is only free today because of a new law that allows courts to factor domestic abuse into the sentence. Those behind the bill believed it was an important step in ensuring rights for victims.
Who'd you kill? What'd you do? That, I think, was almost more terrifying than living in the hell that we lived in.
The time that Lisa Ray Moss spent at Oklahoma's largest women's prison is bookended by firsts.
I hit prison on November 1st of 1990.
She was 25 years old back then and was one of, if not the very first woman in Oklahoma to be sentenced to life without the possibility of parole.
When I came into the Mabel Bassett that night, it was 5:30 at night, and they're all in the day rooms and the hallways, and they're all screaming, "Oh my God, we've seen you on the news. You're here with a life without the possibility of parole. Who'd you kill? What'd you do?"
She didn't pull the trigger on the gun that killed her husband, Mike Moss, in January of 1990, but she received the same sentence as the person who did. As for the question of what did you do, Lisa Ray says she wasn't allowed to answer it back then.
And then the attorney said, "Don't say what happened. Don't say why, because then it goes to motive." But there was a motive. Again, there's no justification. There's just an explanation. Doesn't make it right. But nobody wanted to hear our story.
The tactics and the defense, the level of defense, the level of advocacy that she was given at the trial level was not what we would expect today.
Until a hearing 34 years later under a new law. At the beginning of January, people packed into a courtroom in Seminole, Oklahoma to see a piece of legislation 2 years in the making in action.
The opposition I've heard everything from, "Are you sure you want to wrap your pretty little head around the subject of domestic violence?" to, we don't want to create any laws that men could manipulate.
The Oklahoma Survivors Act went into effect at the end of August 2024.
Hi, good morning. We have a pleading that we need to serve on the DA. We're not sure who exactly, but it's a retroactive survivor justice application.
It requires the court to look at and potentially re-sentence cases where a person convicted has been physically, sexually, or psychologically abused by an intimate partner, household member, or trafficker, and commits a crime stemming from that abuse.
Well, we're waiting on someone to come pick up a file in from us.
Oh, I got it.
Okay. Appreciate you.
Well, first, the question is, that's okay.
Well, I hope that gets in the right hands.
The judge will be able to re-look at the situation. Was that crime against something that happened from your abuser, to make sure that the punishment actually fits the crime?
The sequence of events leading up to this crime started in the late 1980s when Lisa Ray, a 20-year-old young mother, met Mike Moss, 12 years her senior. They were married in 1987, and she admits there were some good times, but says the shift started 6 months into their relationship and escalated after she became pregnant.
Things just got worse after I got pregnant. He drank more. He was much more violent towards me because he wanted me to have an abortion, and I wouldn't have an abortion. So he said he would make me have a miscarriage. And he proceeded a number of times to try to facilitate that.
The application for sentencing relief filed in September of 2024 alleges the now 59-year-old was physically, emotionally, financially, and sexually abused by Mike Moss for a period of roughly 3 years.
There was a lot of horrific things that were happening behind closed doors. And I lived terrified. My daughter was terrified.
It also states Mike Moss beat, raped, and sexually assaulted Lisa and forced her to keep her 5-year-old daughter's sexual abuse at his hands a secret for a period of 6 months, or face severe physical punishment.
I'd been to the district attorney, I had been to DHS, I had asked for help. Nobody helped us. And at one point, you just give up.
She confided in her brother Richard Wright, who later admitted to the shooting, claimed at Lisa Ray's trial that he acted alone and took a guilty plea. Both of the siblings would be found responsible.
Like, he gave up his life for us.
3 decades later, Wright testified on Lisa Ray's behalf once again. This time, her daughter was there to hear it.
And at one point, I looked at her and I saw the fear on her face. Like, what if this fails?
Like, are you from Oklahoma, Appleseed? And I was like,
We'd failed 2 years prior at the commutation hearing, and her heart was just broken, and I thought, she can't go through this again.
Hi, Rodney. How are you? Thank you for being here as well.
In this never-before-seen footage,
We'll have you all sit down. They might ask you all to introduce yourselves. They might not.
our cameras were the only ones there in January of 2023 when the case made it to stage 2 in the commutation process.
Okay, we are here on docket number 162, Lisa Moss.
Miss Moss was not present at the time of her husband's murder. If this board does not take action today, Miss Moss will die in DOC custody. It is on land letter 1.
Her representatives noting the roughly 50 programs she completed in prison. She also obtained an associate's degree, master instructor license in both cosmetology and barbering.
I'm not the same person I was 33 years ago. And I hope that you can see that.
And a ministry certificate.
I just would again reiterate that I don't believe it's this board's position or place to relitigate cases. I fully acknowledge that she has had an excellent presence in the prison. But call for a vote.
Ed Konieczny,
No.
Richard Smotherman,
No.
Kathy Stoker,
No.
Richard Miller,
No.
Calvin Prince.
No.
Commutation is denied.
She was denied their own no.
What's happened?
She was just denied commutation. Every single board member voted no. So they're going to come out.
Women are being abused, and that's crazy. That system is crazy. They need the Lord.
And we need to protect the women who are in situations like this.
But whenever I was broken, first getting into prison, not knowing what direction to go, Lisa Moss killed.
isn't it about redemption? Isn't that the point of this whole thing? This is very clear.
What is hard is seeing those women every single day at the prison, knowing that sometimes it's just still archaic.
2 years later, they gathered again.
I mean, I'm hopeful for Oklahoma. I'm hopeful that, the wheels of justice are going in the right direction now.
I'm not going to do my max, but we'll do them outside. Yeah.
This time, the scales of justice would tip in favor of Lisa Ray. The judge reducing her sentence to 30 years with credit for time served.
There have been many years where people did not believe that you were a victim of abuse. The judge said today, very loud and clear, he believes you. What does that mean for you?
It's amazing. It's overwhelming. It's overwhelming. But I'm thankful. I'm thankful for the opportunity today.
His sister was here today. She's a great person. It's just an emotional time for her. We've got the best judges in District 22, and they made a decision that, albeit our victim's family doesn't agree with, the judge believes that they met the evidentiary burden required by the Survivorship Act.
It's been met with support from lawmakers and those who work firsthand with Oklahomans who are impacted by abuse.
We assume that people will call for help. We assume that people want to call for help. We assume that when people call for help, such as law enforcement, or even anti-violence providers, agencies, that they'll be met with empathy, that they'll be met with an open mind. And I'll tell you right now, it doesn't always happen.
In April 2024, the District Attorney's Council applauded Governor Kevin Stitt's veto of a slightly different version of the Oklahoma Survivors Act. with DA Council President Chris Boring saying, "When public safety is at issue, it is our responsibility to raise concerns when legislation would have unintended consequences."
The legislature passes the law. They provide the law to prosecutors. The prosecutors have to conform within the parameters of the law that was provided. Although I don't agree with all the tenets of the Survivorship Act, I understand the intent behind that legislation.
Oklahoma has been in the top 10 for rates of domestic violence for the last 25 years.
That we have underfunded services for so long that we're basically like, if we're not going to fund the services, then let's at least consider the impact it has on people after the worst of the worst has happened.
Colleen McCarty, the founding executive director of Oklahoma Appleseed Center for Law and Justice, represents numerous people who've been granted a hearing under the OSA but are still waiting for it to take place.
It's not supposed to be retrying the case. It's just we're re-looking at the sentence. We need to prove these three things. It should, in theory, be relatively simple. But because of the opposition that we have been getting from different district attorneys, we've been basically preparing for it as if it was a trial.
Because I'm the one that's been ending up in hospitals after being raped and beaten and having my home violated and taken advantage of.
One of those cases, the first person in the state to apply in Tulsa County, April Wilkins.
That the law is working as intended, and so I have a lot of hope for April and everyone else who has applied.
And now the implications of this law are extending outside of Oklahoma. We've learned that 6 states are either considering or actively introducing legislation that mirrors the Oklahoma Survivors Act.
So it's clearly something that people have seen as a bipartisan issue.
Members, it's a privilege today.
I feel vindicated in so many ways. I'm certainly ashamed for what happened and how I should have done things differently back then. But I won't live with my head down. Not another day. I finally feel heard.
Lisa Ray Moss, the first domestic violence survivor released under the OSA, now with a second chance. How are you hoping to use this second chance?
I don't ever want to be quiet again, ever. I didn't know how to use my voice before, and I will use my voice now to help women that are in domestic violence situations, and even those that aren't.
Including those she left behind.
To turn around and to walk out of the gate, the front gate. I didn't go through the back gate, I went through the front gate. It was like everything that I had seen in my dream before had finally been fulfilled.
We reached out to the district attorney on this case to give the family of Mike Moss a chance to comment, but we did not hear back.